turned out well. And again, all because of people who are concerned, and of course, divine intervention.
Divine intervention, and that's what it is, divine intervention. All right, so that's my opening statement. And let's now turn to the substantive matter at hand, and we're talking with the Water and Sewage Company, WASCO. And as I said at the top of the show there, we are in a drought period. How serious of a drought it is? Well, if you look around, you're beginning to see the browning of our trees, the grass, and so forth, and then you can feel the heat as well. And the rainfall, not as much as we would have expected. To discuss that, today we have with us Mr. Timothy James. He's the Senior Supervisor of the Water Services Department at WASCO. In the middle there, the beautiful Sherry-Ann Gillard Williams, who is the Communications and Marketing Officer for WASCO. And towards the end there, it's Mr. Gordon Wyke. Did I get that correct?
You did.
Gordon Wyke, who is the head of the Project Management Unit at WASCO. Thank you so much, gentlemen and lady, for coming in. And we will start with what exactly is this drought that we are experiencing? How severe of a problem is it? Mr. James?
Okay, as you mentioned, good afternoon, ladies, gentlemen, good afternoon, customers, I must say our customers, and good afternoon to my fellow workers, WASCO employees, who I must say, even before I speak of the drought, when this COVID thing hit St. Lucia and we were on a 24-hour lockdown, because of our essential nature, we had our certain employees out who have never been on a break, facing the public and trying to ensure that our pipes are fixed and persons remain receiving a supply of water. So I must thank our frontline workers, especially the distribution crew, the water quality crew, the abstraction crew. They have never had a break in terms of their work. And I must say, I would like to thank them for coming out and still motivated to ensure that we continue, especially now with this drought, to ensure that our customers are receiving a supply of water under this COVID period plus our drought period. What we had started monitoring our systems, our river flows, even before the start of the year. And like the method indicated that from last year, even during the hurricane season, the rainfall deficit was as much as maybe 50%. And you could have seen it in terms of our recharge to our rivers. They were not quite the same as normal. In fact, over the past years, we realized that the rainfall average has become less, and our recharge levels to our rivers has not been the same. As you know, we are primarily surface water in all our cases in the south, north, Bavano area. We depend on our surface water. As you know, our major water source is the John Compton Dam, which is one of the reservoirs now, which is assisting us in terms of getting through this period. What we realized, even for the month of April, our rainfall for the last, say, 6 years, this year, has been the worst in terms of the data we gathered. And it has, showed its face. We lost about 6 feet of water from the John Compton Dam in March. And to date, in the last 2 months, we have lost about 12 feet of water. Our maximum level is about 343 feet above sea level. And we're now at 321 feet above sea level. Now, all persons know of Hurricane Thomas and our heavy siltation at the dam. And because of that heavy siltation, we do not have the volume of water which would maybe normally keep us right through the drought or the dry period. And so, to put it summarize it, we literally have between 5 to 8 feet of water to manage throughout the balance of the dry period. We had a meeting with the Flood and the Drought Committee on Thursday last, and based on the statement, we are expecting at least 2 more months of very dry weather, which means that though you may see rain, but the rainfall will not be as normal, and so we still have to be, actually, that these next 2 months will be even more challenging for us in terms of managing the water supply we have in our various intakes and at the John Compton Dam. In terms of our supplies, I could break it down in various areas so that persons would know. I could start with the Babono region. What we have realized, our normal production at our Hill 20 treatment plant would be about 1.16 million gallons of water per day, where we get our water source from Talvan, Maki, and our gravity sources. Our current consistent production at night is literally 13%, or we're down almost 90% of what we used to get from the rivers. During the day, we get a little more. Sometimes we are able to produce, we get about 70% decline. So if we realize that we're losing at least between 70 to 90% of our normal inflows to our treatment plant, definitely it would affect the customers on the other side. And that's where we now have to deal with how to manage that resource, how to ensure all customers receive. I know sometimes persons, expect to get water all the time, but we have to realize that, like COVID, we are not in normal times, and we have to do what is necessary to conserve. What we do now to even help the situation at the Babono, at the Hill 20 treatment plant, is to augment the supply by utilizing water from our main source, which is a John Compton Dam, through our Phoebus treatment plant, to augment the supply, especially at night, to help in terms of the customers in the Babono region. As I mentioned earlier, our John Compton Dam levels have dropped significantly, and that too we have been watching very closely. We have actually reduced the amount of water we take from it, which we've taken out the amount of water taken from it, and we have looked at other sources which we use, like the Vanna intake and Wavin Paso. We have now increased our pumping from the Vanna intake to ensure that we reserve as much as possible the water we have in the John Compton Dam. Because what you have even realized, whereas we activated another pump at Vanna, we realized that for the last few weeks or a week or so, we could not even extract the amount we would normally take. Currently, we take about 1.4 million gallons per day from our Vanna intake, but we had to reduce it last week to at least 0.9 million gallons per water a day. So this is our current situation in the north. I guess when we get to the rationing aspect, we can speak about that. I think I could let Sherry-Ann speak about the situation in the south, because unlike in the north, we have the John Compton Dam where we have reserve water. In the south, they do not have that. And in the south is as bad or even worse than in the north.
Well, thank you, Tim. Even before I go into the situation in the south of the island, I just want to take your lead, Lisa, and Tim's, just follow your lead in commending the frontliners who have been out there in the midst of the COVID pandemic, helping to, allay fears, helping to care for people and so on. And a lot of the time we think that when we talk about frontliners, we only refer to the medical staff, the medical team. However, we have other essential service workers, like the technicians at WASCO. We have the electric company. We have, other people who really put their best foot forward in terms of, especially to ensure that we continue to enjoy some of the things that we really take for granted. So I want to just commend our technicians who have been out there, who have been, putting themselves on the line and ensuring that even amid drought conditions, St. Lucian consumers can still enjoy a relatively comfortable way of living, because they still have some form of water supply in their taps coming to their homes and businesses, etc. We do have the the drought conditions as we are speaking about, which we have to contend with. And based on the information that we have received, we can tell, especially from the south, that they are acutely affected by the drought conditions. So presently, the water sources feeding potable water systems in the south of the island are registering a 40 to 60% decline in yields. So obviously it would mean that we are not able to supply, as we used to, several consumers in the south of the island. And of course the rationing regime that we have down there would be very strategic and very stringent as well, because of the fact that the water reserves, the water resources are really drying up. Of course, the rationing is what we use to distribute water to various communities, and those that are most affected are consumers in the Patience, Miku, Deriso, Bellevue, Grace, Beauséjour, Lower and Upper Saltibus, Sauzé, Upper and Lower Font-Saint-Jacques, and Ruby. And in some cases where the rationing system is not enough, we do, as a last resort, employ trucking. So we do have this trucking system in place where we can supply some communities, some residents at a time with water.
So just to interrupt, usually people are not, the concern is that the public or in those communities, persons are not aware ahead of time when the trucking services will be provided.
we have a very dynamic situation that we're dealing with, and it's not always predictable to know where the acute problem areas are. We rely a lot on information that comes from the public so that we can tell, based on our information, what we, decode where those acutely affected areas are. So we try as best as possible to make the information available to the affected areas. We put our information out on our social media platforms, for example. We try to employ the local media, for example, with announcements and so on. We even try to use our town crier system. It is one of the more traditional ways of informing people, especially in pockets of where of what the situation is and what we are doing to address it. So we try to use these. They're not always as effective as we would like them to be, but we do try to employ as many means as possible to get the information out there. And we also rely on the public to share the information, to spread the information. As soon as you know it or as soon as you come upon it, to share it with somebody who it might impact.
Now you have I know you'll get back to the communities in a moment, but you have your control center?
Yes, we do have our control room department.
That remains operational even with COVID. Yes. So if you could talk to us about how are you managing the deployment of staff even amidst trying to follow the protocols for COVID? Because I think that's what makes the difference. While we generally have dry season or droughts, not necessarily a drought. There's a difference between the dry season and a drought, but I would know that you would have had your standing operating procedures for the dry season. Yes. So what makes this time around completely different to perhaps the last year and the year before?
Well, in addition to the fact that we are facing the dry conditions, we have a situation where people are in lockdown, people are in quarantine. There is heavier demand on the system in terms of personal households and so on. We know of the medical advice, the advice from the medical professionals telling people that one of the best ways to avoid the spread or to avoid infection with COVID is to use soap and water to wash hands. And a lot of people are taking that advice, are heeding that advice. So you find that this in itself puts a strain on the system. In a time when we have drought conditions, we have reducing supply of raw water, we have challenges with distribution of water and so on. So all of these things put together compound the distribution issue and cause, a lot of inconvenience for consumers who may otherwise have expected to have water flowing all the time in their taps and so on, not having to ration water, for example, and not use water for non-essential purposes and so on. So all of these put together really compound the problem we have with distribution.
I know you want to chime in, but just before you chime in, maybe you could answer that as well. Regarding the trucking services, to my mind, one of the big factors also would be the idea of having people maintain that physical distance. Even, I've experienced it in a community and there's been no water for X amount of days. When you go to that truck, everybody, as we say, moon sort of thing. So what is that sort of procedure?
Before we even
has?
reach towards the trucking, ever since from the time the COVID, even the early days of COVID, when we had our first, or even before the first case, we are already preparing in terms of our strategies, along with getting advice from Ministry of Health. So we had already put in place a number of protocols to ensure that our staff would remain safe. Because we knew our staff had to come out, one of the first things we ensured that we got the hand sanitizers, the face masks. Even before the general public was advised to wear face masks, we had already gotten all these things for our employees. Even eyewear, because in the early, remember when WHO was talking about, transferring of the virus for your eyes and stuff like that. And all these things we ensure that we got for our employees. Also, from day one, we instructed our employees to stay home, and we would pick them up home, so they would not have to go on a public bus, even when before persons were wearing, as I say, wearing the mask and stuff. So we are still practicing it as employees are, picked up from their home, and we drop them back home. So to ensure that they do not interact too much with, other persons, so that they could put themselves at risk. As you know, and we saw the videos of persons arrested yesterday. For some reasons, I don't know, our population, our people do not always adhere to various protocols. And I don't know, unless we see people dropping like flies in front of us, that's the only time we want to act. And we try our best to ensure that our employees remain safe. If they go to an area, they say to deliver water and they realize it's not safe, I'll prefer them to retreat instead, because if person's not being disciplined and you can't put your life at risk, I prefer you retreat until persons, or maybe we may have to call in, assistance from the rural police force if we realize that, persons are not disciplined. But I prefer you retreat and come back to base than to put yourself at risk of getting the virus, because, yes, now persons getting it, but you never know whose body immune system is weak, and it might just be yours. So I'd rather my staff remain safe at all times, even if it means that we have to retreat.
Okay, so Sharon, you were giving us the list of communities.
Yes,
before.
I was giving you a list, but in addition to what Tim just spoke about with reference to the personal protection and so on, I just wanted to add that we've also taken measures at our locations, or our various locations, to also protect staff and customers who would want to come in. And at the moment, we are open for limited services, so customers wanting to come in to pay their bills or to get reconnections and so on can do so. But we have taken all of the necessary precautions to limit contact and to avoid the spread of COVID, or to avoid infection with COVID. So we have revamped the layout of our offices, especially the areas where customers would frequent. So in our customer services department, for example, we have our plexiglass, and we have hand sanitizer dispensers throughout the building and so on, just to ensure that people use it. And we also remind them, we have signs up telling people to use it and so on. So in addition to providing the service of water distribution, we also take very seriously the personal protection for both staff and customers who are coming in. Going back to the question you asked with regard to the areas that are most affected in the south of the island, Based on our information, the data that we've received so far indicates that communities serviced off the following systems, that is Pasias, Miku, Deriso, Bellevue, Grace, Beauséjour, Lower and Upper Saltibus, Sauzet, Upper and Lower Forcejac, and Ruby. So customers or consumers in those areas would experience prolonged water supply interruptions due to the drought conditions that we're facing.
Can you quantify that for us in terms of we're looking at?
It's a wide
week
area.
At a time, or
it's
in terms of when you say the interruption period, are we looking at a week or more than a week?
Based on the information we get, it appears to be about that time, 5 days, you know, that period of time. But we are trying our best. Amid all of the challenges that that face us right now, I can tell you that the supply levels from our raw water sources are really dwindling. We do not have the amount of water that we used to have. A lot of the streams and sources are really dried up, and we have to find alternative sources, alternative springs to, you know, use as reservoirs to supply persons with water. As I mentioned earlier, the decline that we've registered so far in the south is between 40 to 60%. So that is over half of the supply that we would have normally received.
Okay. We are due to take a break, but let me just also tell you that we are taking questions for you. If you have a question for the panel here from WASCO, you can have that posted on our Facebook page, and I'll be posing this question. I have a question coming in there, or comment coming from Rita, and we could take that after the break, who wants to know that when Balata will be receiving any water. There was another person inquiring about Lapwet over in Monrepo. And then there's also the sort of inquiry from Ali as to if we have all the hotels being closed now, why is WASCO having problems in providing water? So we can perhaps go over that drop of the 40 to 60% again, and perhaps be more, explain that a little further.
Sure.
We will do that after the break, and of course, Primus will want to come in with some Creole before we bring in Mr. Gordon Wyke. Stay with us. We're back in the Information Command Center in a moment.
Because of how quickly the coronavirus spreads, each new case calls for increased public vigilance. Know what is happening, understand why, and comply. Think of the protocols as war tactics. Personal protection tactics. Keep 6 feet away from others. Avoid riding the bus, gathering on beaches, in bars, and shops. Public protection tactics. Quarantine yourself if you feel fluish in case you have been exposed. Call 311 or a respiratory clinic for advice. Country tactics. Partial lockdown. Supermarkets, small grocers, pharmacies, and ATMs are accessible before curfew. Total lockdown. Everywhere stays closed 24/7 for a stipulated period. Team tactics. Don't only follow the protocols. Be a protocols police. Let's win this.
Together let us win this war. Say you shall be a soldier. Together we can beat this corona.
Welcome back to the Information Command Center, and we are speaking with representatives of the Water and Sewerage Company, WASCO. As WASCO, amid this COVID-19 pandemic, trying to provide water for all. Before we went to break, we had some questions and dealing with the whole rationing process. And of course, that question of if we have the hotels which consume more water than the normal households, why can WASCO not provide us with water?
Well, actually, it's a very good question, and that's something we ourselves have even spoken about. Actually, we are even more fortunate that the hotel sector is closed. The schools are closed,
yes,
because that demand on the water supply, it would have been worse for us even to try to manage. What we also have realized, the demand has shifted in terms from, say, the business side or the commercial side to the domestic side, because you could imagine everyone is home. And when you have people home, especially children, your use of water or the consumption water is greater than say, because you're churning out, say, mostly 8 hours a day or even more at schools. So the water usage at home would be much less. But they're now home 24/7. And so you're not churning on water unless you actually policing them. The consumption would increase. So yes, the hotels, the schools, and even the cruise ship sector is at zero. But
yes, because they do purchase
precisely.
water, and that's a revenue stream that was
Precisely.
lost.
So we have lost these revenue streams. So we are at a disadvantage. But in terms of the water available to give our customers, we have more, because if the hotel sector and the cruise ship sector was in full swing, we definitely things would have been much worse. I just want to touch on because I know everybody asking questions about when they will receive water and issues like that. When we speak of rationing in WASCO, the first thing we start is from the source. Now, our average production at our T-Bus treatment plant, which is the main plant supplying the entire north of the island except Babonneau region, our average production would say about 7.5 million gallons per day. Right now, because of the rationing, as I said, we had to cut back in the volume of water we're taking out from the John Compton Dam. So we now have a shortfall of 2 million gallons of water per day. So imagine you have that shortfall. So what we do, that was number one, once you cut back, it will start affecting customers, especially on the higher elevated areas. And so we had to put measures to where persons used to get a 24-hour supply. You're talking about the city of Castries, you're talking about South Castries, the South Castries, you're talking about the from San Jose all the way to Union, which included Laclery. We literally had to close these customers every night to ensure that persons on the higher side of the system, getting water from the Mon, back all the way to Balata and these areas, could receive a supply, and even to augment the supply to Hill 20 for our customers in the Babonneau region. So that's what we talk about, rationing the water. And so we had now, what we realize now, even doing so, we still are not able to satisfy all our customers on the higher elevated areas. So sometimes it will take longer than expected. And so customers, so what we do at our control room, we have our database to know where our customers are most affected. And on a daily basis, we develop strategies in terms of how to get them supplied. We actually started cutting off more areas, widen the amount of areas we cut off, just to ensure that we reach customers. And I know customers this weekend who did not receive water for quite a while actually got some water. And so as time go by, we realize, okay, certain strategies work, and so we can now implement them. We have also now our water trucking for persons we know will be very difficult to get on the highest point of our system. It is much better for us to truck to them, because imagine you have to close off, say, 90 people to supply 10 people. So we realize it's better to truck to these 10 people instead of closing off 90 people. And we try our best to keep the water supply in the system to most customers, because if you start closing off most of our systems, imagine you have a pipeline, say, carrying about almost 100,000 gallons of water. A tank is 100,000 gallons of water. So even before the water gets to your house, that whole pipeline has to fill up first before you start getting the water. So when persons say, you open the water but it never got to me, you have persons with storage. And that's where now we have to even be, I find sometimes we are selfish, that we want to fill everything we have, forgetting our neighbor just higher up has nothing. Now until your demand lower down is not suppressed, you didn't close your taps because everybody want to fill up all the tanks and stuff, it will not get to the top, because you're talking about water hydraulics, you're talking about a pipe, water going through a pipe. Look at the hose, if a lot of holes in it. If you have holes at the lower end, it will not get to the top of the hose.
But once you begin to plug those holes.
Right, so once customers on the lower end is abstracting water, some pistons, when the water gets there, they do everything. Yes, I know you miss the water, so you want to maximize it. But then you have to think about my neighbor up the road and stuff. So that's one way. But we realize, so we try our best not to close too many areas, because to even recharge the system, it takes a longer time. So sometimes we say it takes 2 days even to charge up a system just to get the person on the higher end to get some water. So it has been a challenge. We take our feedback from our customers to see how best we can now manage that scarce resource to ensure it gets to everybody. I know persons get irate and they feel like you don't take them on, but we try our best. It's for our benefit for customers to receive water. I don't think anybody at WASCO would feel happy that a customer, because that's our revenue stream. That's the only way we get to pay our bills, by getting to water to be sold. So as I indicate, we know we do the water trucking and we do the rationing. And I think one thing I think we continue to lament is persons building their resilience. I think we take water for granted too much. We have been talking about rainwater harvesting. Hardly anybody, maybe a big percent of the population still do not have any form of rainwater harvesting. We're looking at climate change, and everybody talk about climate change and climate change and climate change, but what are we doing as people to even combat that climate change? When it's raining, we do nothing to capture the rainwater. Even when there's water normally, there are many customers that don't even have a bucket at their home, for in case there's no water to fill a bucket. And we look at the water tanks, we still look at water tanks as some kind of luxurious item. Persons need to look at a water tank as a bare necessity to ensure that you have at your home. At least, if you look at, the size of a household, if you have 10 people in a household, you then now have to calculate and see how many water tanks I need to ensure that at least I could have water supply for a week. So let's say you look at a figure of 60 gallons of water per person per day on normal usage. But if you now at the home have to ration, what you used to do with water before, you realize now we're in a drought, you cannot do it. You have to ration at your home. So that's the way we have to now take personal responsibility in terms of what we do with water, build our resiliency, because we have a bad drought, but I'm sure persons have heard from the weather experts that we're expecting a very active hurricane season. Do we want, when a hurricane hits us, that we still do not have water if all WASCO infrastructure is damaged? So we still have to build our resilience in terms of our homes, in terms of our storage, what we do with water, how we conserve the water, and all these things. And it's a responsibility for all of us. I know sometimes we expect you to get water from WASCO all the time. WASCO get water from rivers. If, as you mentioned earlier, all around us is brown, the soil is cracking, we expect the catchments, no rain, the catchments will not have water to recharge our reservoirs. So
we can't manufacture.
We can't manufacture water.
It, no?
But we and WASCO realize over the past years that is even dwindling, and I guess later when we start talking about what we're going to do for the future, we'll speak about various strategies we're looking at in terms of doing that.
And it's a good time to just farmers to chime in there. I know it has been a lot for you to take in and for at least, but let's give our Creole audience some insight as to what we've been discussing.
Ok, merci autant Lisa et avant nous causer puis c'est officier à WASCO. Lisa et moi discuter en anglais tout à l'heure la situation côté vite moi était en situation sous côté était pour trouver un service médical et que ça a passé bien puisque nous étions concernés de situation Lisa et qui remercie c'est docteur ni l'hôpital Saint-Jude et Owen King et tout ce monde qui était là et c'est GIS là aussi et nous comptons qu'il les servir à ce pied qui et puis nous et moi ça a touché à chaque nous remercier Dieu qui les a assoupié avec nous encore nous remercier tout le monde qu'on les a même fait bon monsieur madame nous puis nous les officiers de WASCO et nous savons situation WASCO et situation temps à présent quand même là la plupart qui tombent souvent la vie est sec et WASCO ni pour tuer de l'eau pour tout le monde au pays cette ici et que chaque monde côtoyer puisque yo pas qu'à joindre trouver service de l'eau continuellement et nous pas simplement pour ça mais WASCO ni explication aussi à ce qui ça yo fait et qui qualité de marche yo qu'a point pour ça adresser régler et corriger situation ça là les venir pour de l'eau. Bon nous et puis nous qu'on les ado monsieur Timothy James qui on a c'est grand grec là à WASCO qui a gardé tout bagaille service de l'eau pour assurer que tout bagaille marche bien. Nous madame Cherian Gillard Williams qui c'est responsable pour communication à WASCO et monsieur Gordon moi passe aussi moi ni Noah bien ça c'est Wake. OK, merci Lisa. Bon, nous me mettre attention à sur camarade moi nous qui dans l'histoire sur Jamaïque, nous Jamaïque ensemble. Il va nous ça ici aujourd'hui monsieur Timothy James et monsieur James vous expliquer en anglais sur plusieurs façons les venir pour WASCO et qualité service là qui WASCO ni pour bail à bas situation carrément ça là qui a venu garder tout bonnement. Dis-nous expliquez pour nous en créole qui ça WASCO a fait à présent pour soulager la situation et qui ça ou même tu as voulu ces pratiques là c'est mon qui a reçu le service de l'eau on sait laisser faire pour ça aider WASCO aussi pour faire situation mais à tous les deux façades là.
Merci Primus. Quand nous avons cette lycée qui a expérience Kawen ça wed ça a fait tout l'eau nous venir mess. So WASCO a try bestly pour manage l'eau ça pour ensure tous ces customers nous joignent l'eau. Nous savons pas quoi normal et que nous voulons customers coupon. Si vous avez joindre l'eau pour une whole journée, half journée, ça va changer, because nous pas ni de l'eau pour servir comme normal. So nous can manage as best qu'on nous ça, nous can try séparer de l'eau, ou ni un bobo, ou tenir un gros bobo, ou tu can buy plus gros portion pour tout le monde. Boboa plus petit.
Après ça.
Bon, still n'est pour buy tout le monde buy pour manger. Bon, quand il pour buy plus mess, ou quand il pour ça
quand il plus mess, on va ça même quand il te
so tu can manger 3 fois par jour. Quand il pour manger 1 fois par jour because ou panique manger pour buy tout le monde. So nous can try best nous to faire ça. Délai moun il capable plus l'autre pour moun joindre loi. But nous savons ça. Et nous avons joindre update tous les jours pour customer. So nous connaître côté qui a souffert et nous avons try mettre tout en place pour try.
Mr. James, l'occasion moun appeal moun ka play comment temps pas ka joindre l'eau WASCO ça. Nous avons séparé et puis quand même mais yon dans ces barres là mon cas dit après ça c'est OK en temps passé WASCO tenu problème pour bailler de l'eau mon tenu type assess là mais nous savons hôtel qui a servi pile assez de l'eau qui WASCO a poursuivi à pays et yo ka dit que tout hôtel fermé après ça alors il supposé plus facile pour WASCO poursuivre service de l'eau ça là comment vous voulez expliquer ça
oui.
non?
Comme je dis, l'hôtel là, il peut servir bord de l'eau. Mais si l'hôtel là est ouvert, nous avons une worse
situation plus mauvaise.
Plus mauvais. So, when nous prenons l'hôtel là pour buy de l'eau, because l'argent ça nous a fait, il a aidé nous payer pour toute opération by nous a fait. But another way, si nous happy because ces customers ni plus de l'eau nous sabayo. So c'est ou pas pour garder pour oui c'est hôtel la fermé so il a fait even plus bien pour customer because si c'est pour ça nous t'ai qu'à pour faire plus place et nous t'ai qu'à even fermer hôtel là tout ration hôtel là tout because nous pas ça va hôtel là tout et c'est customer pas joindre so ça nous t'ai qu'à faire c'est fermer hôtel là, we don't know 6 litres you know, twice medita, usaf nous ka faire mieux aussi, but il te ka plus ouais pour nous.
Dernièrement, qui qualité soulage, qui qualité encouragement on est pour bail, c'est mon qui a coûté nous là après ça, qui voulait particulièrement ces places là qui a souffert plus des situations ça là, venu pour service de l'eau de WASCO. Quelle qualité encouragement on voulait bail, puisque vous voulez un encouragement, vous voulez tant qui situation qui est venue, mais vous ne pouvez comprendre aussi que nous n'avons quand même une situation WASCO grave tout le monde est venu. Mais quelle qualité encouragement on voulait bail?
Il a fait chemin mal nous passer par de l'eau quand vous voulez, but moi just voulais connaître nous ni you as chez nous et nous can try best nous to ensure that you join l'eau. Just keep nous office nous qui ba nous information so nous savent qui côté qui plus mal because nous savent because nous can monitor network nous but délai ou quoi ou bail tout le monde a déjà coming de l'eau et yo monde pas joindre l'eau là de là il y a ways pour ça moun ça moun passe fermé vavio et que pas même savent ça so tout neighbor yo ka joindre l'eau et que pas joindre so ça nous ka faire nous ka investigate si ça là il y a problème nous ka wager pour ensure but nous voulons tout ces customers joindre l'eau et nous ka try best nous ka follow up nous ka créer nous ka veiller our crew pour check you pour ensure that you joindre nous ka try best nous to si vous pas joindre your week 6 jours nous ka try best to for our priority to ensure au joindre l'eau.
Monsieur Timothy James qui c'est go grec WASCO qui est responsable pour service de l'eau. Après ça, je vais passer pour Lisa.
Thanks, Prime Minister. We now want to get to Mr. Gordon White, who is the head of the project management unit at WASCO. And so now we're talking about what's being done to try and assist and alleviate the situation, as well as moving forward with WASCO. We know that the January upgrades to the water supply system there in January, that has been ongoing. What is the latest with that? Okay,
good afternoon, Lisa, and to your viewers. The January project, I would say, is essentially at a point of completion. Okay, and it's in service and has been so probably since February of this year. Okay, but let me give probably a little history to the project before I talk about what's happening now. In that, we had 2 phases of the project, and the first phase was essentially implemented during 2017 and completed at the beginning of 2018. Under that phase, we essentially built a new water intake to extract water from the river in the Mabua Valley, and then also a raw water pipeline that took water to a new treatment plant that was built at Tomazo. In phase 1, we essentially built a plant to treat 0.4 million gallons of water a day. And then we also built part of the transmission system, and also some distribution elements were built at that point in time. With the completion of phase 1, we were able then to start supplying the lower reaches of Dennery North in particular. And that actually benefited greatly the residents of Dennery North in terms of areas like Tomazo, Richford, Pontparnasse, and so on. So we had an initial upgrade to their supply, and this was very good because Dennery North, from my understanding, had suffered a lot over many, many years, and this was an opportunity to improve that supply, which we did back in 2017, 2018. Phase 2, then we undertook phase 2, and phase 2 began in beginning of 2019. And what that was essentially to do was one of the main things was to increase the capacity of the water treatment plant from 0.4 million gallons to 1.4 million gallons, quite an increase. And then we also now had to extend our transmission capacity by 1.7 kilometers, and then we built a number of new pump stations and rehabilitated 1 station, and then we built 3 additional water storage tanks in the Dennery Valley to complement what was already there. So right now the valley has storage capacity of over 600,000 gallons of water, which is quite adequate. So all of this was built out, as I said, by February, and we transitioned essentially from the old system, or from phase 1 and part of the older Dennery water supply systems. We transitioned from that in the months of November, December, January. So by February, we started to see the benefits of the supply to Dennery. And these areas that benefited from that were areas like Larry Seuss, Olio, Belmont, Dune River in particular. Okay, so the residents of these areas are now receiving a much improved supply. Let me though put a caveat to that, in the sense that we, as we have been saying all in our presentation so far, we are affected by the dry season. So for instance, therefore, our river flows supplying the water treatment plant are low. We are getting water to the plants, and I think we will be able to supply pretty adequately this time, but we are affected by a reduced capacity of the plant, and that would have some some effect to the residents. But we are managing what we have, and as I said, it's a much improved supply over what we've had prior to 2018, 2019, 2020. Yeah.
And so to the other regions of the South, I know we started discussing that. How are we managing, perhaps in the VFO area? We're looking at people coming up on the West Coast as well. So how are we faring in providing water on that end of the island?
Well, on the West Coast, we are still okay. The ancillary system is holding up, that system actually always holds up during the drought. The cannery system always holds up during the drought. So far we are not getting any issues from the canneries and the ancillary system. I guess you can look at it in two ways, because the demand there is not as high as in other areas. The amount of water they have can sustain them maybe until the end of the dry season. For the other areas from Sufe right back to Miku, these are the areas which are most affected, and as Sherian indicated earlier, you're down 60% or even more. And it's not a case where you have any form of raw water storage that you can now say store it and redistribute it. So it's in the South, even managing of the supply there is even more stringent in terms of trying to reach all the customers, especially in the areas where that your infrastructure is not as it should be. But I must say the people in the South, they're doing their best in terms of, apart from rationing and trying to give various areas water at different times, they also utilize the water trucking, so to help in terms of helping to reach the customers. But you know, we continue to ask our customers to bear first and continue to give us the information, because with information we'll be able to now decide how best we handle and to ensure that we reach everybody.
And with respect to the other projects that WASCO has ongoing, I know a lot of questions are coming in pertaining to the dam. We want to know that we've spent millions already. Why can't we have the John Compton Dam up and running to supply us? I know we went through that a bit earlier on, but just so that we can satisfy our viewers.
Sure.
To the project.
All right, so let me, before I get to John Compton though, because you asked a bit about the South, let me just talk about the VFORT project that affects the South. So VFORT essentially gets a supply from two main treatment areas there, Grace and Bosiju. But there has been affected in the past by issues of quality, the water quality, and also quantity. And particular quality, we weren't able to treat the water as we would like in the past. So once we had heavy rainfall and there were turbidity increases, then we had to shut the plants down, and then people got affected by that as well. So what the new VFORT project is attempting to do is to improve both the quality of the water supply by providing top-of-the-line treatment systems for the area, and also the increasing amount of water that we are supplying to VFORT. Okay, so the plan is essentially to upgrade the systems we have at Grace Water Treatment Plant and at Bosiju Water Treatment Plant by putting in new plants there, which will allow us to treat the water much better, and therefore allow for us to continue supplying, especially in areas of heavy rainfall, times of heavy rainfall. So we are doing that with those plants. Along with that, we are increasing what we call the transmission capacity to allow more water in our pipelines to get to the areas. we are increasing the supply overall, the quantity of water to about, I think it's ranging about maybe about 1.4 million gallons to some in the order about 4.8 million gallons. So quite an increase via the two plants. And also we are adding a number of water storage tanks as well, a main pump station, a number of water tanks, which will probably give us an increased capacity of about 1 million gallons of storage in the area. So overall, we see quite a good benefit that would occur for the Vieux-Fort area. The project, essentially, we signed a contract with the contractor in December of last year, 2019, and began formally the work in March of this year. It will run for, again, we have a phase 1, a phase 2, and our phase 1 will run for approximately 18 months. So from March of this year into, I think, about September of next year, where we'll see a new wastewater treatment plant being built, some additional infrastructure, which will bring immediate benefits to Vieux-Fort as it stands at this point in time. Okay? So that's a little bit about Vieux-Fort. And with the John Compton Dam, so Timothy has clearly outlined some of the issues we are facing there. And one of our main things with the John Compton Dam is to provide additional water security for our consumers. What's happening is that because of the extreme events we had in Hurricane Thomas, and after that, our lower extraction point that we have for the John Compton Dam became blocked by quite a lot of sediment. So we cannot use that lower port right now to extract water. That's what Timothy has, and that's what the operations personnel have their issues. They can only go so low in the lake, in the reservoir, and then they can't go any further because the lower port is blocked. So our project essentially is to try to clear that lower port by removing the sediment by a dredging process. Now the project itself is in two bits, what we call JCD1, JCD2. One is to build an area to actually store the sediments that we're removing from the reservoir, and the other one is the actual dredging and moving of that or transport of that sediment to the sediment disposal area. The sediment disposal area is still under construction. Unfortunately, it's been in a sense ironic because in the last 2 years we've been working on it, but we have been affected by heavy rainfall, and that has kept us back quite a lot. And in this year, actually, we now have a bit of the dry weather, and they actually are making progress in this particular time, even though it is detrimental to our operation supply. Okay, so that's going on, that's proceeding. And then we want to commence dredging as soon as we can, bearing in mind, of course, the conditions that are occurring right now. The contractor is already on board. He has supplied equipment, the dredge itself. We are putting the pipelines, and he just asked now to come back essentially to begin the dredging process for us, which will probably occur a little later on when our rainfall hopefully will pick up so that the lake levels can once again rise for him to do that dredging process.
All right. Thank you very much for that. We're running out of time, but I will not be forgiven if I were not to put forth the case for residents at Carolee. The concern there is that it's a perennial problem. So whether we're in the dry season or not, Carolee is an area never receiving pipeline water there. So
I will not say I will not say never. I think maybe we, in terms of we still have some issues to look at in terms of how best we look at our network to ensure that we always supply them. I know Carolee has been an area which has been a challenge for a number of years. We have built up our storage on the top of Mondidor to ensure that we supply them, but because of the demand of the water, not only for Carolee, because we have to feed other areas like Balata, Timon, and all these areas. So we need to look at and see how best we can now arrange a network to be able to take care of all our customers. And it's a work in progress, and to ensure that we meet all our customers. We're never happy to hear that one customer doesn't get a supply. We'd like all our customers to receive a supply, so that's something we're looking at and see how best we can now ensure we meet the expected targets and results.
Okay, Sharon, I know we are wrapping up, but if they give me an extra 2 minutes, I'm going to give it to you. Are there any specific trucking days coming up?
Well, I actually wanted to talk a little bit about the rationing that we've been, touching on throughout this program. And It's very difficult for us to draw up a schedule to inform people of when exactly they're going to get water. As in the past, you know, we have had instances where, you know, we project that certain people in certain communities will get water at a particular time. That does not happen, and then, you know, you create a whole other set of chaos, you know, because people think that, you know, maybe there's something going on behind the scenes that they don't know about. Maybe you're targeting them, or, you know, deliberately keeping them without the resource, when that is just the furthest thing from the truth. As Tim has been saying, I mean, we depend heavily on our customers to, you know, settle their accounts, to pay their bills and so on, which is what helps us stay afloat as a company and whatnot. And to tell people that, okay, you're going to get water at 6 o'clock or 12 o'clock is pretty difficult to predict and to be accurate about, because we operate such a dynamic system. Anything can happen. It's so unpredictable. We have challenges and conditions that, you know, you never can tell what can go wrong, and so it can affect the customers adversely, and then, you know, you have another set of troubleshooting to do. So we really cannot definitively put a water rationing schedule out. We cannot tell you that, okay, we will send the water truck to you tomorrow, because we have to analyze the data that we get from our control room, which is where people call in to report faults, to report whatever queries that they have in terms of whether or not they're getting water, how often, how frequent they're getting water, and so on. So it's very difficult to put a schedule out, or to really say to people, okay, at this time on this day you will get water. We just want to encourage people, however, to save, conserve, and to store as much water as possible when you get it. Going through our Facebook page and going through our messages and so on, we see people saying, well, you'll send the water in the night and so on. And as Tim was explaining a little while ago, the system is a dynamic one. It takes time for the water to travel through that system to get to you. It takes time to charge up the system and for the water to get to residents, especially those at elevations, at the further ends of the system, and so on. And for that reason, we want to implore customers, consumers, that, you know, even when the water comes at 12 in the night, which is not, you know, the most ideal time when people are awake and, you know, full of energy and ready to, you know, go fill up their receptacles and so on.
They're awake.
But
it's COVID. Most people are.
But you know, we want people to profit these opportunities when they get the water, because we do try our best to give everybody to share the supply equitably, you know, and we're not always successful when it comes to that, but we want people to try to work with us, try to cooperate with us, and conserve the water when they get it, because it is the best that we can do at this time. We're working amid several challenges, and we just want people to have an appreciation of what they are and to work with us so that they too can help themselves to, you know, maintain their supply of water at home.
Well, I've just tried to now just monitor. So I've now figured out the pattern in my household. So we now know the pattern, and so we do everything we have to do according to that pattern.
Right.
Okay. Timothy, you are going to get the very final word.
Okay. All right. In terms of, you asked about the trucking. Actually, we truck every day. Actually, as we speak, we're in the Timon area for the high elevated areas in Timon.
So in Timon at this very moment,
we
so
actually
people who need that will
right.
be able to go out and they'll be able to see that
so
truck. And
the high areas in Timon, we're actually there now. I just want to let our customers know that we are definitely thinking of them and to ensure that we have water for them in the future. Like Mr. White indicated, the project at the John Compton Dam would ensure that we can now sustain and not have to cut back on our supply to customers when we're going through a drought period. Also, we are looking at, because we realize that our surface water levels have been reduced over the last 10 years, we're now looking at other ways. We're looking at desal plants that may be somewhere we may have to go in the future, where we may have to need a major one in the south and a major one in the north, to ensure that we can augment our supply, especially during a dry period, where we can now use it to balance, to ensure, because our aim is to ensure that all our customers have a 24-hour water supply. So WASCO is looking at every way to try to do that. We're looking at our raw water lines, because we know we have some challenges there. We're trying to do some work to make our system redundant. So if in case a line is damaged here, we can now use another line to ensure that we do not cut off customers to repair that line. So we look at all ways to ensure that in the future, we have a better water supply for everybody.
Thank you very much there, Mr. Timothy James, who is the Senior Supervisor of Water Services at WASCO. Ms. Sherry-Ann Gillard-Williams, who is the Communication and Marketing Officer, and Mr. Gordon White, who is the Head of the Project Management Unit. Thank you so much for your time and all of this valuable information. On behalf of Primus Hutchinson, I am Lisa Joseph, signing off from the Information Command Center for now. Don't forget, we have more updates for you throughout the day. You could join us at 4 o'clock this afternoon, and we'll be having, Tony Nicholas will be in for the next update. See you next time.